Hey guys, what's going on? Hermdo back with you. Hope you're having a good night. Gen Z is shifting to the right, which shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody who's been paying even marginal attention to what's been going on lately. But people are blaming social media. There's a lot of discussion, a lot of arguing about how this is happening and what is to be done about it. And so far, I haven't seen many good answers, but let's get into it right here. This is from Financial Times. The Gallup polls conducted by surveying 70,000 people globally over the course of 2023 and 24 found that less than a third of under 30s in the U.S. trust the government. The proportion of U.S. young people who said they lack freedom to choose what to do with their lives also hit a record high at 31% from 2024, a level worse than all of the rich countries, bar Greece and Italy. For younger people in the U.S., the future seems kind of bleak, said Julie Ray, managing editor at Gallup. While the Gallup poll does not cover the direct repercussions of U.S. President Donald Trump's second term, experts believe that rising political polarization is likely to lead to a sharp drop in trust in future surveys. Connor Brennan, a 25-year-old financial economics PhD student at the University of Chicago and a disillusioned Republican, said he trusted the big figures in politics a little less now than in the past. Friends, families these days are more and more torn about by politics, and seeing that politics taken as almost entertainment, Brennan said, it should be boring. Really has become more and more like you watch the latest episode of the sitcom. Yeah, that's what politics is nowadays in the age of Trump. It's been a decade of this shit now. Now it's all about drama. It's like you're watching a TV show. It's like reality TV. It's like Jerry Springer on the floor of Congress every single goddamn day. There's always something new going on. There's always some new controversy. Somebody's getting canceled. People are turning into this shit, and they're obsessed with it. We're clicking away on our phones looking at this shit. We're scrolling through TikTok, Twitter, all these websites, even Reddit, to a certain degree. But yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just replaced so many of the regular institutions. People keep talking about how they can't look away from their phones with all this politics shit because they're so wrapped up in all this crap, all the discourse on Twitter, all the drama unfolding on there. And it's affecting other aspects of their lives, But I'm not here specifically talking about social media and stuff like that, but just the nature of politics has changed in such a way. It's pretty much entertainment now, and it's been that way for a decade. This is all Gen Z really remembers. The youngest Gen Zs, 10 years ago, they were 3, 4 years old. They were tiny. And the older Gen Zs, they were still in high school. A lot of them couldn't vote. They probably wouldn't pay too much attention to it. But yeah, this whole thing came out. This is really the only politics Gen Z knows. And so much of this malfeasance and corruption has been exposed over the last few years. Some by Trump, some by the Democrats. But basically, they're in this system where nobody trusts anybody else. All this shit has been going on. They don't trust the media. They don't trust journalists. They don't trust corporate news. They don't trust anything anymore. They feel like no one's telling them the truth. Just based on some insights I have, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting here. It's just been this carnival for a decade. They know nothing else, and they're just kind of hyper aware of how things are. They're more tuned in than I was at that age. I'll give them that. All through my 20s, I was mostly apolitical, and then Trump kind of changed that for me. That these guys are finding out earlier in life that, hey, this whole thing is ridiculous. This poll here, views of young people in the U.S. on many aspects of politics, society, and well-being have deteriorated. Here we go. Confidence in the judicial system, way down. Good affordable housing in cities, way down. Confidence in national government, way down. Satisfaction with freedom in your life, way down. Now, this started in 2010. That's when millennials were coming of age. I was in my early 20s back then. And things, we were headed into Obama's second term. The economy was good. The job market was good. A lot of things millennials kind of took for granted because millennials remembered some normalcy. We came up in the 90s. We remember how shitty the Bush years were, but there was still some semblance of normalcy. Some of the traditional institutions still existed back then. We believed hard work paid off. 40 hours a week could afford you a nice place. You'd be able to start a family, buy a home and whatnot. So we still had a little bit of normalcy going into this kind of thing, but it started kind of deteriorating right when it feels like maybe 2014, maybe 2013, 2015, kind of around the area when it was kind of like a rebuke of Obama and his progressive policies. And we start seeing kind of between the financial crisis and the pandemic was when things started to get a little loopy here. But yeah, I mean, like I was saying, like Gen Z doesn't really know normalcy that much. The younger ones certainly don't. They're still in high school. But yeah, the other things, satisfaction with freedom of life is down. Expectation of life in 5 years' time, 0 to 10, that's down. Experienced stress yesterday, percent, that's up. That's up over 60%. It's probably like 65, almost 70% there. So yeah, it's a serious problem. That's a serious problem. We talked about this a lot. We talk about male loneliness. We talk about how Gen Z feels directionless and stuff like that. How do we go about fixing it? How do we give these guys a sense of purpose anymore? The proportion of young people in the U.S. reporting no confidence in the judicial system was also hit a record high in 2024, with more than a third of under 30s who also do not trust the police. I would not say I trust the government. A lot of things have changed quite recently. Call the government's ability to be honest with American people into question, says Daniel Quezada, a 22-year-old substitute teacher in Arkansas, adding that he also had a profound sense of skepticism regarding the police after being peacefully involved in protests in 2020. Well, let's move on to this. When young people are talking, you better listen. This is something from the article. They're kind of getting into this. This is some reaction on Twitter. These are getting all fogged up. But most of these are just phones with the housing one, which is actually housing. Sean McCarthy says, it's no wonder they reject the neoliberal consensus, but yes, it is actually quite a bit of a wonder why they're going right instead of left, and there seems to be very little self-reflection on the left about that. There's moments like these when I think the last window for the left was 2008 to 2016. Low trust, LOL, nothing matters, ism will take many forms. Hustle culture, Tate-type masculinity, various extreme political ideologies, but all inimical to any recognizable social democracy. This is what I meant about generations of young people now having witnessed nothing but self-dealing and hypocrisy in the land, with zero confidence and being able to work towards anything good for themselves or each other. Left Caesarism through mass debt cancellation will be so easy, man. Of course, we're not going to do it. Yeah. Shit. But this is an article from Vox talking about the real reason Kamala lost, and they had a section about younger voters, and I think it was pretty illuminating. Let's get into this. How do young voters fit into this? It's my understanding young voters shifted significantly against Democrats in 2024. Yeah, so this relates to other trends. Young people are more non-white than the overall electorate. They're more politically disengaged from the overall electorate, but the single biggest predictor of swing from 2020 to 2024 is age. Voters under 30 supported Biden by large margins, but Donald Trump probably narrowly won 18 to 29-year-olds. That isn't what the exit polls say, but if you look at your survey data, voter file data, and precinct level data, that's a picture you get. And if you look at people in the age of 25, every single group, white, non-white, male or female, is considerably more conservative than their millennial counterparts. And it even seems that Donald Trump narrowly won non-white 18-year-old men, which is not something that has ever happened in Democrat politics before. So young people are quite a bit more right-wing than they were 4 years ago. And a lot of that is replacement. It's a different set of young people. It turns out people age. What is your sense about this generation of young people is more conservative than we are? It's about each other's cohorts, each cohort's distinctive formative experiences. In my understanding, political events that transpire during your adolescence or an early childhood can shape your worldview in a durable way. So maybe the millennial generation came out of age during the disaster that was George W. Bush's second term, and then associated Democrats with an incredibly charismatic two-term president and Barack Obama, while young Zoomers associated Democrats with COVID and inflation under Biden. I think that's a pretty good summation of that. The way, I think back to the 2000s, the Bush years, the way I got my information from Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert, the Democrats seemed cool. The Democrats seemed hip and young, and they knew what was going on. They were funny. They were taking it to Bill O'Reilly. They were taking it to George Bush. They were fighting the good fight. And then it all shifted in the age of Trump. And then everybody got super serious about how this guy was a fascist Nazi. Yeah, there were some nut jobs calling George Bush a Nazi, but it wasn't like it is with Trump. Nowhere close. It didn't get the coverage that, Trump Nazi comparisons get these days. But now there was an orange Cheeto Hitler in the White House, and it was a massive threat to democracy. People were flipping out. Gen Z sees that stuff, and they're just kind of this is goofy. Why are millennials and older people acting like this? This is stupid. So, but yeah, there's some reaction on Twitter. Oh, yeah. So they're getting a little bit roasted by some right-wing guys. There's a Skinner meme. I think that Trump is special and generational. I wonder how many of these gains will stick after he leaves the scene. COVID pushed them to the right, even young females. Which issues are 18 to 20-year-olds more conservative than 28 to 43, or however the breakdown goes? Most about immigration. I have a hard time seeing the bulk of 21-year-olds being pro-life or wanting lower taxes in exchange for Medicaid cuts. Yeah, they might not be concerned about that stuff, but I think the overall, this woke DEI, how they perceive it, not how it actually is, how it's been perceived for them, or how it's been related to them by this right wing media hegemony, the Alex Joneses, the Glenn Becks, the rebel medias, the Ben Shapiros, all these figures on the right who tell people about this kind of shit, frame it in such a way that it makes it seem really scary. DEI is scary. Wokeness, you don't really know what wokeness means. You don't really know what DEI means, but you know it's scary. It's set up to disenfranchise you, especially if you're like a white male. People get nervous about that kind of stuff. People freak out. They think someone's coming to take away something from them. And that's how the right kind of worms their way into these young guys' minds. But get some reaction on Reddit. I've been trying to explain this shit for years now. This is about the Kamala Harris article. I've been trying to explain this shit for years now. The Reddit has a massive presence on TikTok at the moment. It has become known how popular it was amongst teens. They knew if you indoctrinated a 14-year-old in 2020, you'd have a loyal voter in 2024 that manipulated your children, raised them more than you did. And to this day, the left still doesn't have a strategy to deal with the GOP's infiltration of social media spaces. So the right thinks the left is grooming young people to become trans, and the left is pretty much correctly assuming that the right is grooming young men to be Nazis, essentially. You can keep on with the whole Democrats are to blame for covering up Biden's decline. I keep talking about Harris was never that popular. And even though you were factually correct in both of those accounts, we lost to a R-word dictator. Literally the lowest bar imaginable to clear the motherfucking potato could have won that election over Trump. You do wonder how the hell this shit happens. They'll also help explain Trump's abrupt 180 on the issue of banning it. Yep. The political shift largely stemmed from perception of credibility and campaign promises. When the right made pledges to address key issues, they benefited from not being in power. They could position themselves without having to answer for current conditions. Their promises felt fresh and untested, making them more convincing to voters looking for solutions. In contrast, when the left made similar promises, while already holding power, voters were more skeptical. Many questioned why those issues had already been addressed over the past 4 years. Exactly. Why isn't Biden fixing that? Biden's messing everything up. Biden's a corpse. Biden has dementia. Kamala wants to continue Biden's policies. That's a big problem. That's a big issue with all this shit, They were blamed largely for COVID, even though the most of the reaction to COVID was under Donald Trump. But we'll talk about that some other day, but so the doubts about whether new promises will be fulfilled under basically the same administration. I can imagine 3 years from now the argument flipping back to benefit the left. It's kind of what happens when nobody trusts their government regardless of a party and simply goes to vote off verbal promises. It's all about convincing of a message you can deliver. Yes, the messaging, the right, Trump had the messaging. I'm not saying it was good messaging, of course, but they had the winning message. The Kamala is for they, them, Trump is for you. Like, basically talking about, just going on and on about how bad the economy really was. And that's the thing that's the thing we could argue about for a while, how bad things were under Biden. Inflation was going down, allegedly. GDP was going up, allegedly. The stock market was doing really well. And a lot of these neoliberal guys, I talked about this endlessly, but a lot of people seem to be covering for Biden. But let's get into this article from The Guardian. DYOR, that's what they say. Do your own research. For those of us not quite meeting the 13 to 28-year-old Gen Z age bracket's common refrain when one of them finds their truth challenged. So I said on some DYOR regarding the report last week that most Gen Zs were in favor of UK becoming a dictatorship. The study commissioned by Channel 4 has been described broadly as shocking, worrying, and bleak. Yet for anyone with daily interaction with that generation, it would probably be better described as fairly predictable. But it gets into it here. The survey showed that 52% of Gen Z thought the UK would be a better place if a strong leader was in charge who does not have to bother with parliament and elections. 33% agreed that UK would be better off if the army was in charge. So how did we get here? Well, in the name of DYOR, it's almost about endless TikTok, where the algorithm is serving up young men and boys all endless streams of content. either consciously or subconsciously, are promoting strength, common sense, traditional ideals around gender roles, and incessant railing against wokeism. There's a reason Donald Trump's unhinged attack on woke policies and federal aviation, which is the content swirling these social media platforms right now. Pushback from the right against liberal elite dogma or political correctness gone mad as all this time. What's different is how TikTok has turbocharged ideas into mainstream for young people and the teens who, by and large, aren't engaged with politics. Those who previously might have been more interested in drinking cider or getting off with girls. Almost 3/4 of 18 to 24-year-olds visited TikTok in May 2024, spending an average of 64 minutes a day on the site. Among those in their early to mid-teens, saturation is closer to 90%. The survey showed their favored single news source. But yeah, making the transition, getting into TikTok, making the transition into TikTok. I found this. It's only 7 seconds long. But basically what she says is, thinking about how Gen Z was on track to be the most progressive generation before right-wing influence became mainstream. Just wait until Gen Z can vote, we used to say with each other. Well, something more desperate than hope, maybe relief. Honestly, it's kind of sad if you have to just slough off all your problems on the next generation and figure they can figure it out, they can help it, they can fix the world. It's what happened to us millennials, you know. Not that I'm making for excuses for how millennials turned out by and large, but still, you can't really depend on the next generation. You can't burden them with fixing society when your generation was unable to. You know, it's just like, screw it, we'll let the young people figure it out. And it's just, you're taking away everything from them, and you're giving them nothing. These young people have nothing, and you're just expecting them to just carry the world on their shoulders. It's asinine. It's asinine. But this is also the generation that came close to quitting smoking, only to exchange right-wing talking points between inhalations of a vape. A generation poised to break harmful cycles, only to watch those same forces slip back in, rebrand and repackage. So do we blame Gen Z, or do we reckon with the larger systems that keep finding new ways to pull us back? Hey, I'm all for reckoning with the larger systems. I'm all for that. How do we go about that, though? What do we do to fix that kind of shit? How do we get, young Gen Z guys back to voting Democrat? Can we? Do they even trust the democratic process anymore? This is a big problem. This is a big problem. I don't know what the left's answer to it is. It's not good. It's not good, but there's some right-wing TikToks. Let's check out this lady.
Are more conservative than millennial men are. So let's talk about it. I wrote a Substack that's called Gen Z Gov, focusing on government and politics. The piece that I wrote this week, I focused on Gen Z men and some of the role social media algorithms played in making men much more conservative than their millennial peers. I'm not on the side of the internet where I'm getting content from men made for men, and so I'm kind of unaware of what that content is and kind of how it is radicalizing young men. So you can read the full piece of my Substack. I'm just giving you the highlights here. From the exit polls in the 2024 election, 4 in 10 Gen Z men voted for Trump. Based on that data, based on that conservative shift of young men, I
saw other TikToks when I was doing that video about teachers and Gen Alpha. I saw a few TikToks where these young teachers were talking about how excited these Gen Alpha kids were about Trump. Yeah, they're still like a decade away from voting, but they were like so excited for Trump and MAGA, and they were kind of freaking out. These teachers were obviously pretty liberal, but it kind of is a freaky thing. All this talk about how evil Trump is, it just, all this shit about fascism and Hitler and Nazis, it just don't work. It just don't work. It is comprehensively failed. It's a massive rebuke of it. I don't know how we answer this question.
I wanted to look at the role of social media algorithms and see how algorithms kind of shaped that election result and if there was a huge definitive role. I've seen plenty of young men come on TikTok and say from their personal experience that if you as a man have any sort of hobby in something like weightlifting, gaming, you will soon be fed right-wing bro motivational content. Start off as very vague gestures of discipline or maybe give you some slight financial advice, but then you'll start to hear these right-wing talking points. The reason this content is so successful in changing the minds of young men is because the content doesn't seem super politically charged. It seems like an older brother looking out for their best interest. The right-wing podcast bros, and I'm sure you've seen TikToks in this like post-election discourse about their role in the election results, are very successful because they've hit this nerve that a lot of young men feel. Most Gen Z voters don't have fully formed political ideologies yet, so the right-wing ecosystem online steps in as a way to help young men make sense of the world. One key talking point you will hear in these right-wing podcasts is this distrust of authority, and Trump sort of plays into that really well. So if you're starting to hear that the government is corrupt and women are taking over and migrants are coming in, then you hear a figure like Trump, it makes obvious sense how someone's going to go from listening to a right-wing bro motivational podcast that doesn't seem that political to then supporting Trump. I did a lot of
It's just basically another form of like, I abdicate my responsibility to control my life and be a productive member of society to some right-wing authority, and I will therefore blame vulnerable groups for my issues. I see them as a threat. This has been going on forever. I mean, George Carlin was talking about this with Larry King 30 years ago, about how like some of these white people, some of these like white people of a certain age, like younger white people, or like older white men usually feel about, their power slipping away and whatnot. And I know I don't like using white as a pejorative. I'm a left-wing guy, but there is something to be said about that kind of stuff, though. The way, because I hear a lot from the left about how evil white men are pretty consistently. And a lot of it I kind of roll my eyes at. Not that I'm saying you can't criticize white men, but, sometimes whitey's got to just, I as a white man, just like, sometimes it's like, okay, maybe I got to sit down and listen a little bit and kind of understand my privilege or whatever. But that's hard. That's a hard bar to clear for a lot of other like white guys. And a lot of them become susceptible to this kind of stuff. But the left kind of feeds into it as well. There's a very pronounced anti-white sentiment with a lot of leftist media. And, getting into this, like, the immigration debate, the wokeness debate, the female taking over debate and stuff like that, there's so much fear-mongering and bullshit around it. It's really, you really get sucked into that. And it happened to me. It happened to a lot of guys I know. I spent some time on the right, nothing I'm proud of, but I don't know. But what else we got here? How I walk these streets, knowing that I'm a right-wing asshole. Okay, dude. No apologies, real. What street in Finland is this? Love your vids. Wear a MAGA hat in public. Better far right than far wrong. So yeah. A lot of this kind of stuff. This guy here. I'm in enemy territory. Be the change you want to see in the world. Crazy hairline. As left-winger, I think the same. Maybe the only politics that matters is up versus down. We were royalty and so forth. So yeah, a lot of different reaction to this kind of stuff. A lot of people sounded off on this kind of stuff. All this kind of shit. It's just, it doesn't look good. Gen Z is rejecting progressive politics. Do I want to add like any validity to that and say maybe the right brings up some valid points? I don't know. Maybe I'll do that in another video where I'll kind of pick that stuff apart. I'm not really prepared to do it right now, but it's definitely something worth discussing, but I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'm a partner. I'm a YouTube partner now, so you can form a membership if you want to. If you don't want to mess around with that, you can visit my Cash App. That's all I got for right now. If you have any thoughts about this, leave them in the comment section down below, and I will do my best to get back to you. But sound off in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Ryan Little.